Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining and welcome to our webinar. This is on class tasks, which we're really excited to release and present to you. So we will just take you through quickly what's going to happen in today's presentation. So this, as I say, is about our class task feature. This is the introduction. I hope you're enjoying that so far. It's really professional, right, so far. We'll talk about what class tasks are and how they fit into Tassomai's sort of bigger picture of adaptive quizzing versus the ability for teachers to specifically pick and direct topics, and a little bit about the evolution of it and how it fits into other things we've built over the years, like video to quiz printables. I will most importantly give you a walkthrough of how to do it and talk you through hopefully a little bit of background of like what's going on under the hood as you're doing it. Some people care about this a lot, others not so much. I think it's really important for people using the program to know what's going on under the hood. I don't want Tassomai to be a completely black box, so we'll try and explain what's going on to the best of my ability. Most importantly, show you how to set one and how to look at the analysis and explain that side of things. And most importantly, to try to get across the sort of pros and cons of class tasks, because the question that everyone is asking at the moment is like, why can't I set these all the time? So I'll explain to you why that would be maybe not such a good idea, but used in moderation, how powerful this can be as a tool. And of course, time for Q&A. Speaking of which, classic webinar sort of thing, there's a, what do you call it, Q&A button in the thing. Please add questions, any questions that occur to you, particularly about this feature, but about other stuff too. If you've got unknowns around the product and you'd like to ask them, now is a good time. And your questions will be useful to others watching this now or watching it later. You know, for every one person in this live, there's about 100 people that will watch this after the fact who can't ask their questions. So maybe think about the questions they might want to ask and add them in. That's always quite useful. So first of all, introductions. This meeting is facilitated and set up and organized by Sam. So Sam's with us in voice, if not in image. So Sam, would you have a quick intro of yourself and what you do?
Hi, yeah, thanks very much. I work with schools and families who subscribe to Tassomai, help set up things like this and the live lessons, other webinars, and also work with the social media, sharing things like product updates and what we're all up to.
Thanks, Sam. So yeah, if you have any particular requests for webinars you'd like to have, either for you and your colleagues sort of CPD, or things that your students might benefit from, or your students' parents might benefit from, Sam and colleagues run lots of great webinars for parents. We've got one, when is it? Very soon, about nutrition and nutrition, particularly for kind of good exam and revision performance. You know, parenting webinars, that kind of thing. Sam and Joe and others in the team run all of that, as well as live lessons. If you didn't know about live lessons, please take a look on our website. They're free for students, but also we need teachers to help deliver those live lessons, for which, of course, we will reimburse you for your time and effort. So if you're interested in presenting some, please also talk to Sam. Sam's easy to get hold of, social media or by email. I'm Murray. Hopefully we will have met at some point or spoken on the phone or by email. I'm the founder of Tassomai. I kind of built the original version of the software and the original content. Now, obviously, we're a bigger team, but I'm still basically in everyone else's business, annoying them. So I still continue to run the company. And yeah, ClassTask is a product that our brilliant product team and engineering team developed with my involvement. So I'm the one here to speak about it. So we'll get on to that. What is a class task and the ins and outs of adaptive quizzing? So Tassomai ordinarily doesn't ask you as a teacher what you want your students doing. As you will have noticed, you can control the content. You can say, we're not ready for genetics yet, or we're not ready for Macbeth yet. But we can, beyond that control, we're in the driving seat picking quizzes for students. But we often have this requested. It's a feature that other platforms have available and teachers are used to using. Can we set an assignment for a whole class? And so what we've built is something that allows you to do that it presents it as a resource-based learning. So it'll give students some direct instruction, first of all, and then a summative quiz. So it kind of flips the model slightly, where we've normally used our video content as a sort of response, as a therapy to a discovered gap in knowledge. We're flipping it. So you get the resource, then you get the summative quiz, instantly marked, really cool analysis, and particularly I think the impact assessment of it, which I think is exciting. I hope you do too. And then crucially, where this sort of is a very Tassomai thing suddenly, is everything that's done in that summative quiz as a result of doing that exercise will then blend into the formative assessment that is the day-to-day of Tassomai. So we're incorporating all that kind of material that was in that exercise into the students' ongoing practice. Here are some pictures. They're very small. Don't worry about it because I'm going to give you a walkthrough. But it's to illustrate, you set a class task. That's what that screen looks like. Then they get a video. This is me younger talking about EM spectrum by the looks of it. And then you get this sort of analysis mark sheet. I'll show you that in the real app later on. In fact, this was my reminder, set a class task now, because I put the walkthrough later, but I realized if I don't set one early, you might leave. But also, I want to get some people at Tassomai to do some of the exercise so you can see the marking in real time. So I'm going to do that. Right, I will move over to my teacher account. Hopefully we're still seeing that. Here's what you see when you log into your dashboard. Obviously, you'll have different numbers of classes and probably not all the subjects, but if you're a sort of SLT or Tassomai, you might see all the classes. Okay, so these are the classes that in my fictional teacher account, I teach. So if we go to one of my classes, by the way, these are fake names. Not everyone in my class has coincidentally matching initials in their first name and surname. These are fake accounts that we use for demo purposes. Here is my top set science class. Okay, so they're all fantastic users of Tassomai. Some of them have already completed their weekly goal. It is Thursday as we record this. And all the normal stuff you're used to seeing, the overview of what they're doing, you can rank and see who did their daily goals on Monday and so on. Other things like that, the understanding grid is your dots grid that people use to sort of plan intervention. And printable reports, I hope you're using as a sort of monthly print out and stick in books, sort of state of the nation for every student. But this is the new feature class task. So here is where you go to set it up in the top menu of any given class. When you click that, you get to that screen you saw a screenshot of. We don't have any going at the moment, so we're going to create a task now. So that takes a second to load because it's just looking at all the content your students have. Now, a few things to think about. First of all, today is the 18th of April. So my default deadline for the class task is going to be a week ahead, midnight of 6 days hence. But you can set a deadline very much shorter. You could say, get it done by tonight or get it done by tomorrow. So you can set the deadline there. And you can set the deadline up to 2 weeks ahead. I'm just going to set it for tomorrow so that it'll get out of the way and not mess up anyone's demos tomorrow if they're using these accounts. So we'll click apply, but you can set a date and time up here. Next thing is to choose your topic. So we've got all the science topics here because this was a science class. And in physics 2 electricity, let's just say I want to set a topic on the national grid. Now, these should be familiar to you as sort of breakdowns of the topic material because they will be broken down, hopefully according to your specification. And likewise, if you're looking at English literature, you'll see book or play, and then that'll open out into plot or themes or context and so on. So the menu structure should hopefully fit pretty well with your scheme of work. And for any given topic, subtopic, you'll have a couple of possible resources. So this being the national grid, we've got a video resource on the national grid, and we've got a text resource on the national grid. Now you can preview them by clicking on that little icon next to each thing. The links here will be to a BBC Bite-Size article. These sort of play icon things will be to one of our videos that will run in Vimeo, not YouTube. So it's sort of not going to sort of send them off down a rabbit hole of looking at YouTube. So I'm going to select my resource being that video and then scroll to the bottom and click create. So just checking to confirm, and I've created that class task. Now I can see all of my students in this class task, And they, next time they log in, will see this class task come up as their assignment in Tassomai. So you don't really even need to tell them to do it. It will come up and it'll be the sort of highest priority. But also you'll be able to see in real time, each time you log in, how these students are getting on with completing the task. So here they are all listed. They all say didn't start at the moment because I've only just set it. But as they start logging in and doing their quizzes, they'll start ticking off. Now, you can modify or cancel that class task if you are unhappy with it. Obviously, clicking on modify will let you change the end date. You can cancel it. If students have already started, then well, I forget the exact ins and outs of it, but it's a little bit more tricky to cancel a class task that students have started, but it is still possible. But just you can still cancel it by clicking there. I'm not going to cancel because I want people doing it. And here you can list then all your past, present, and future class tasks in the list. So hopefully that screen's fairly sort of self-explanatory. The review table we'll see in a minute will show the marks, and you also have a progress table here that shows where every student in the class is for this topic in the kind of national cohort ranking, just in terms of based on the questions they've given on Tassomai so far, the accuracy and how much of that topic they've covered. So we're hoping by doing this exercise, we're going to see them all move up the rankings a little bit. And we'll come back and see more of that later. But that's the setting of the class task bit first. All right, we'll go back to our presentation. So now a little bit of background on this sort of topic area. We've often been requested, please can we set specific topics and build exercises around specific topics. We've toyed with it in the past, but I want to go in a little bit into how Tassomai kind of essentially works and why this was a tricky thing for us to build. Tassomai is an adaptive quizzing program. So if you imagine a topic like periodic table of elements as a deck of flashcards, what Tassomai is doing all the time is shuffling these cards or ordering these cards for every given student. And the way those cards are ordered or shuffled, I mean, they're not shuffled because they're not random. The way those cards are ordered are specifically designed to adapt to every student's own personal kind of history with that content. So we'll move cards around based on recent errors for correction, or to build on recent errors, fill in and scaffold underneath, or kind of move them from correction to confirmation to mastery. We'll shuffle those cards based on their relative difficulty and differentiate that learning path for every student. As I mentioned, scaffolding, or to stretch them as they start to master material. And then we're thinking about recency. We're thinking about spacing and interleaving so that we can give quick feedback to corrections and quick opportunity to correct, and then extending the spacing as they start to develop longer term memory of that fact. So you can see there's a lot going on under the hood, but not only are we shuffling the cards in one topic, we're carefully ordering the cards in a whole range of topics. I mean, I only had room on the screen for 6, but in science, I think there are about 25. In English, there are about 40 subtopics that are all having their questions carefully structured within for every student. And then, of course, all the decks are themselves being ordered relative to each other so that some topics come up more frequently and in more kind of therapeutic sense, and others come up with a more stretching and a longer time spacing coefficient. So they're ordered to affect the spacing based on how much students have done, where they're showing problems or improvements, where they need to revisit something soon or extend to test their memory, and by certain acts of priority. So if a teacher has paused material for a long time, then when it's unpaused, it'll come up with more rapid feedback. And the other thing is we have all the exam dates pre-programmed into Tassomai. So some things like biology will be coming up a lot more right now because the exams are sooner than, say, the topics in physics too. So, there are lots of factors that cause this material to be very carefully structured and ordered. Now, if we start building in topic pickings where you as a teacher can say, we want to practice the national grid today, we get rid of all of that, right? And we're just essentially taking one card and one small set of questions and making that the focus of possibly the whole day's assignment on Tassomai. Now, if a student's doing only one or 2 daily goals a week, and you're picking a couple of topics, there's a risk that the work they're doing is biased solely to that specific topic you've picked, rather than being biased towards what they might need to be practicing. So there's a risk of omission of material they need being missed out. And the carefully balanced structure might get thrown, and you would need as a teacher to have a little bit more close oversight in what are they doing, what are they missing. So the risk of allowing too much topic picking was something we resisted because we felt it might create negative effects, either in terms of student attainment overall, or in terms of your workload as a teacher, having to kind of monitor more closely where the gaps are. That said, we think that the way we've done it now is going to keep these things in very nice balance, but it does inform some of the choices we've made. So we've built class tasks to ensure it's going to be high impact and hopefully mitigate those risks. So that's a little bit of the sort of background. So back in time, about 3, 4, 5 years, we did a big research project with UCL, the Institute of Education, to look at the impact of videos like this if they're used as a sort of preemptive feedback. We found they had a really profound impact on student attainment, but also on student knowledge retention. If you're interested in reading our research paper on that, it's one of those research papers that is like public domain, so you can read it. It'll be on our blog somewhere. But it was a really interesting impact that we saw on knowledge and retention from these videos. We've done quite a lot of work to build video quizzing and build points, incentives, and multipliers to direct students to consume these videos when they come in, when they're appropriate. And we've seen a really good impact from that. So first, class task is really building on that kind of work around video to quiz. Second thing we've done more recently is develop this feature called Printables, which hopefully you're seeing and using once a month, where you can get a summary for every student on what they've done. So, just basic stats of questions answered and time spent, where their strongest topic was, a sort of a bit of a pat on the back, but then to identify weaker themes. Now, this was an interesting sort of tweak to the way we were working, because we're not just picking out the quiz where you've answered the most questions incorrectly, but really where your level as a student is relative to the rest of your cohort weaker. So we're not ranking your topics against your other topics solely on accuracy, but we're ranking your what we call dot score against everyone else in your year group's dot score, and sort of comparing you to the curve, saying this is the topic where your peers are ahead of you, so therefore kind of a weaker topic in that sense. So it's really to try and direct people to kind of climb that bell curve, if you like. These two things we combined into the next feature, which was Leapfrog. This is something we've been testing over the last year, here and there, where we say, okay, we know this is a weaker topic. If we can direct them to an intervention like a video, and then give a summative quiz that's very tightly focused on the content, what effect can that have on their scoring against the cohort? What impact can that have? So, we've tried these Leapfrog things. They've been hugely successful in terms of impact, in terms of the kind of feedback we've had from them. One or two snagging areas around students sort of getting stuck on a BBC Bite-sized article and not being able to get back. But once those things have been sorted out, and I believe they have, the impact pedagogically has been huge. I mean, this was just an example screenshot on a topic that I'm doing quite badly in my own quizzing, and having kind of really read the bite-sized article on the topic and then apply that to my knowledge, my score jumped a huge amount, and I sort of overtook basically everyone else in my year. So that's kind of really nice effect that you can report on. So that's where these ideas all combine into class tasks, something that you can set for a class, and you can measure where students were and where they've got to, as well as seeing a very clear picture of the kind of progress they've made. Having set that class task that I did earlier, I'm going to go to my student account, which is over here, and just show you what they'd see. Oh, in fact, look, there you are. So this is what a student sees. This is a student with a lot of subjects. And you see that blue icon there, that says a class task has been set for me. So whereas in history, it's normal quizzing, and I've just got to answer one more quiz about ending World War I or the cause of World War I to get my daily goal done, and I have a choice of 2 topics each time. If I go to science, you'll see I don't have a choice of 2 topics anymore. That one that my teacher has set for me is now the only game in town. And if you can't avoid it, basically. You've got to get that done because your teacher has said to get it done. You also see it's worth an absolute boatload of points. And that's because if you watch the video and learn from it and answer the questions correctly, as I hope you would, you not only get the points from 12 questions and the bonuses, but you also get a multiplier from watching the video. So it's worth a lot of points. Now, I'm not going to make you sit through a whole quiz, but just to give you an idea of the flow, here's what happens. Let's start the quiz, and it's loading, first of all, a video from me talking about the national grid. I'm turning the volume down just so I can set it playing so you can see what's happening. So this is me talking about the national grid and step-up transformers and step-down transformers and power is voltage times current and all that stuff that I used to know in 2019 when I made the video. While this video is going on, as they're watching more of the video, their points multiplier is creeping up. So it's encouraging them to kind of consume the video, watch it. If they fast forward to the end, they don't get the points, that sort of thing. We're pretty careful about making sure we do it. Obviously, if they're not listening, like I'm not listening, they're not going to be able to take it and they're going to struggle with the quiz. But then 2 times nothing is still nothing. So the multiplier is to encourage them to get the benefit from listening to the video and translating that into points. So I'll skip that video and I'll just show sort of one question rather than do the whole thing. So there we are. It starts off generally with the easier questions in the thing and we'll ramp up in difficulty. How is energy transferred around different parts? Well, so if I didn't know it was national grid, having watched that video, I'd be struggling. So you get that question and you move on. You'll notice up here, I get 6 redos. That is awarded based on your ability. So lower ability students will get more redos. Like this one is a student who's got historically low score in this topic. High ability students will get fewer of them. But it's just a chance to say, okay, you got that wrong. This is the right answer. It's going to come back at the end of the quiz and see if you can get it right again later. All right, I'm going to get out of this quiz and go to the teacher view. And what I'm hoping is, if I refresh the page, we will see some work has been done on this homework. Oh my goodness. Wow. If only real classes were this good at getting their homework done in, what was that, 10 minutes? So here you can see, wow. The only one who hasn't done any is somebody whose login details I didn't give to the team, and I was logged in as Keela, and I haven't done one. I feel like I should answer one question just so I can see that in real time. Let's refresh that page again, actually. And there you are, my first answer has come up. So this is our presentation when we get to the analysis and explanation. Not much to explain here. It should be fairly self-explanatory, I hope. Green ticks mean they got it right and red crosses mean they got it wrong. But actually there's a little bit more to it than that, isn't there? Because you'll see some white ticks. This is where, in this case, Celinda here got that first question wrong. As I said, you could use that redo. She got that question wrong. It went round to the back of the queue, and on her second attempt, she got it right. So that gets you a white tick. It's a sort of, okay, you got it in the end. But we know from the way we're recording those answers, that'll be a question that needs to be tested sooner to embed that correction. Whereas these ones she got right first go. Now, these crosses mean that the student used all their retries and still got these questions wrong. So they are persistent errors. Now, a mark scheme on its own isn't worth much if you don't know what the questions are. But what you can do is click on any question and see it brought up. You'll notice every student has done the same question. So this is quite nice if you want to be in class and show this, right? I set this homework, the deadline was this morning. You've all done it, hopefully. Now we can put this on the whiteboard and see, all right, everyone seemingly got question 2 right. That's fantastic. But question 11 here, a few people right, a couple of people wrong. We could bring that up and see what the question was and discuss it. Step-up transformer will, well, which one is it? not sure, you can have a class discussion, and then you can click this toggle to reveal the answer. So that's kind of nice thing in class. I think there's a slight issue with my screen size, but if you're on a bigger screen, it's not so cramped. You can also rank by how many answers were given or who did the most retries. So you can rank by score, rank by that kind of thing. But you can also I'm struggling to do it because my screen's a bit compressed. You can also rank by who got a given question right or wrong. Or of course you can just scroll up or down. In fact, it seems to be ranked. I've seemed to have ranked it now by question 4. So here's all the first time rights, and here's second time rights and didn't get it right. So that's the sort of analysis of the mark book, if you like. Let's now look at the progress table and see what's happened to people's positions in the national cohort. Okay, well, that's pretty fantastic. I did pick a topic that is relatively tougher topic. When you saw before, we just had the dots that showed where they were. Because they've done this sort of long, intensive 12-question quiz and got them all correct, they will have massively moved up their dot scores into the top sort of 10 percentile. That's a better result than probably you could expect in most cases. Actually, maybe not with some of these themes where historically students are just struggling with them, or because they're harder questions, students don't unlock them necessarily quite so quickly. So there's a real chance to have great impact. Now, these tables are sortable, so you can sort by, who finished top or who made the most improvement, and so forth. And you can sort of see these differentials really nicely. I think that's super exciting. I hope you do too. So that is the sort of setting and analysis of a class task. Let's go to the strengths and weaknesses. So I've talked, I'm sure you will say, at too much length about the sort of the pros and cons, and particularly the cons as I see them, of directing students' Tassomai usage in a very fine topic. The fact is that will be your whole class's daily goal, possibly more than a daily goal in some cases. So that, maybe a quarter of their Tassomai week will just be doing that one exercise on the national grid. Sam, by the way, do say thanks to everyone for getting that all done so nicely. It was perfect. So that's basically their homework. So if they've done that, they haven't done anything else. Well, so what? Maybe you might say, well, we wanted them practicing that. But if you were to set that every day, they would be missing out on stuff that our algorithm is saying they really need to fill in these basics or practice this thing they did last week. And you'll see lots of those students got things wrong first and then right. These will have been genuine answers. They were real people who work at Tassomai and are not necessarily science teachers who might not have known anything about step up and step down transformers. And that's why you saw some white ticks where they didn't know and they took their best guess and got it wrong and then they got it right. So they will genuinely have been learning as they went on some of this material. Now, what they really need now is to come back tomorrow and the next few days and have normal Tassomai bring those questions into the general electricity quiz and bring the general electricity quiz up into the kind of rotation so that they have a chance to embed what they've learned. So what our algorithm is doing all the time is responding to something like a class task and flipping that into their normal daily practice. If you were to do class tasks every day, that wouldn't be able to happen. And these sort of one-off exercises would be just that. And what we're really keen to do is make sure they're part of a much more cohesive practice. We talk all the time about keeping plates spinning, and that's exactly what we're trying to do here. So for that reason, you are restricted as to how many class tasks you can set. I'm sorry about this. We've already been asked this a few times. Why can't I set more of these? Hopefully I've explained why. The workaround is, the restriction is one class task per teacher per form. That's because we didn't want Dr. Smith setting a class task for her class and then Mr. Jones with the same class not being allowed to set one and having teachers block each other. That would be a nightmare logistically. So it's one per teacher per class. So if you really want for your year 11s, for example, to kind of get more of these in, then make sure you work with colleagues to sort of coordinate and set more than one, because you can. But even still with them, they really should be doing other practice to embed what the class tasks are. So I've explained why. Use cases, how to use this. Well, you do what you like, really. I mean, whatever you think, and we'd be interested to know what you think you want to use this for, or how you'd like to use it, and learn from you. But in our imagination, while thinking about teachers and teaching and how you'd like to use it, we think this would be a very good thing to do when you finish teaching a topic, so that the random feeling bank of questions that come through on Tassomai every day suddenly can focus on, all right, we've finished prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. Now I'm going to do a class task. It's just going to drill those questions in one homework. Fine. Likewise, around your scheme of work, you might have a sort of a staged, we're all getting to this end point in a sort of schedule, and we might use a class task just before the end of that topic as a primer for a real end of topic quiz that we're doing in class or something like that. I really like the idea of the pre-testing effect. If you haven't read the research on this, I thought this was going to be the next big thing in education a couple of years ago, but I haven't really heard people talking about it much. There is real evidence on the fact that if you give kids a quiz on something they've never even heard of, they will learn it much better when you teach it in class. It's a really interesting effect. Maybe I'm telling you something you've known for years, but to do the kind of flipped approach and put the video or the bite-sized resource followed by the quiz before you get to teaching the topic, I think is a really exciting approach, especially for your higher sets who are maybe a little bit more resilient and confident to step into the unknown. Give that a try. I'd love to hear your feedback on it used that way. And then big one for now is year 11 revision focus. We often see a bit of a drop off in Tassomai usage for year 11s at this time, because presumably you're telling them to do some past papers or do other work, or they're on study leave and you're not kind of breathing down their neck so much. So if you want to use this to direct them into your bets for this is the topic that's going to come up, you can do an osmosis one this week and a flame test one next week. And if you've got a couple of teachers with access to the class, so head of department and classroom teacher and maybe SLT, maybe you can set 2 or 3 and pick strategically some topics you really like. Please bear in mind what I said, though. These things have half the value in the moment, and the other half of the value is from the questions embedding through continued mixed Tassomai practice. Thank you very much for your attention, and we'll see you at the next one.